Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Lucha Underground review. Ultima Lucha Dos Part 3, the finale, and we are not alone. We are also with the Lady J from Face Lock Feministas. Let's get this started!
So originally the plan was we were going to do a Lucha Underground roundtable with the gentleman from TWitWoW, myself as representing Face Lock Feministas, and the Last Real Heels. But unfortunately, the Last Real Heels got called out as being awesome by Matt Stryker, and they're too cool to do a Lucha Roundtable with us now. So they're not here. I'm burying them because I can. And so it's just the three of us, but hopefully maybe we'll convince them that we are also cool, and we'll get all five of us together as originally announced.
Yeah.
Which would be epic.
Yeah.
But we're still cool, though. I have enough confidence, I think, maybe.
So we're gonna talk a little bit about Lucha Underground. Let's try this again. Ultima Lucha Dos, Season 2 of Lucha Underground, the epic 2-hour finale, and then we'll save a little bit for the heels, but not too much.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even know, where do you start? Let's start at the end.
Let's start talking about Pentagon Dark.
Yeah, wow. I was just telling John before that I live with a woman who doesn't watch Lucha Underground, and she came in and watched that whole sort of like transformation happen, and she was like, Pentagon Dark, he looks more like Pentagon Fabulous with that sparkly mask, and I was like, you don't know how to watch this, please leave.
That's amazing to me. I love that, and I loved Pentagon Dark. I even said on our TWitWoW Live Reactions, which you guys can check out, that it's more of a psychological shift than like any kind of a physical shift or anything like that, but I love it. I love his new mindset that he just does not give a single fuck now. It's amazing.
And let's talk about the fact that this is probably more blood than we've seen in several episodes of Lucha Underground.
Yeah,
Well, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just buckets of it. I mean, poor Vampiro, I don't know how much of it he lost, but it seemed like quite a bit tonight. Crazy.
Yeah, I think he can handle it, though. He seems like the kind of guy who can take it.
Definitely the most blood that we've seen since, I want to say, Matanza Mill.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I know No Moss had a considerable amount of blood, too, particularly from Sexy Star. But yeah, this was really something. Yeah, this was crazy.
I think, honestly, this is probably the bloodiest episode of the whole season, because I think the only other thing in my mind that really compares in terms of just massive amounts of blood was Fenix. Was it Fenix Mil Muertes?
I believe you're right, yes.
That just had, the mat was just fucking covered in blood. I'm sorry, do you guys not curse on your podcast? Because we curse.
No, that's fine. I have loose fucking lips here, so you're good.
Yeah, I totally appreciated how much blood. There's a CZW part of me that was really excited to see that much blood, but
that's awesome. Yeah.
This was very gratifying. I think we were also talking about this, John and I were, before, that the one thing, I wouldn't even say it was a complaint that I had, but a big difference that you notice between Ultima Lucha and Ultima Lucha Dos is that Ultima Lucha, they weren't sure if they were going to have a second season, so there was a finality to that.
Yes.
And
this, to me, Ultima Lucha Dos felt like a mid-season finale, because it's still, like, we're continuing so much.
It set up a lot of things going forward.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I feel like we set up more than we really finalized, but I appreciate that we got this change in the Pentagon character, and that we got to see him sort of turn the tables back on Vampiro after what I think was one of the most graphic sequences from the season. Was not even something that happened in the ring, was that backstage thing where he's hanging up in that harness and Vampiro's beating the shit out of him with different things.
Yeah.
So I found the barbed wire covered baseball bat to be a very nice cyclical sort of bringing everything back together.
And may I just bring something up that just kind of hit my mind? What a nice full circle. I mean, I'm not calling this the end, but I think you guys get what I mean. But what a nice full circle ending for Pentagon. Starts out season 1 looking for the tutelage or the mentorship of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Finds Chavo. Chavo doesn't work out. You know, no more needs to be said about that. Finds Vampiro. Vampiro seems to be going great. Finds that Vampiro didn't have his back tonight in his match with Matanza, and now Pentagon Jr., or Pentagon Dark now, has fully embraced the idea that he's this autonomous individual. He's embraced his sovereignty. So I don't think he's going to be seeking out anybody else anymore because, like he said, he is the master now. So he goes from being kind of a follower to, no, I'm ready to lead. So I think that's really a nice full circle ending for the Pentagon Jr. character, which is nice because now we've ushered in the era of Pentagon Dark. So.
And it also kind of plays into this sort of Dr. Frankenstein idea where Vampiro, by creating Pentagon Dark and bringing that out in Pentagon Jr., has created a monster that he can no longer control.
So, and you know, like, I look at that and I think, you know, what great possibilities, you know, because now is Vampiro going to feel this obligation almost, you know, to try and rein Pentagon back in? Who's going to stop Pentagon? I know I was talking to the Lady J. We know that Black Lotus got her arm broken by Pentagon Dark. So is he going to be waging a war at the same time with Vampiro and potentially the Black Lotus Triad, which I know you've mentioned a couple times, Ashton?
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm so glad that that's how that match ended because I really didn't want either one of them to have to take a loss.
Exactly, yeah.
Great point, yeah. I've seen a lot of complaints online about the amount of interference tonight, but to me, all of the interference that happened made sense and helped.
I think, for me, what Ultima Lucha Dos really emphasized tonight is that Lucha Underground sees the wrestling business, and I say this as a compliment, as a marathon, not a sprint. Like, they could have had definitive endings for all of these matches, but they realized, like you said earlier, Lady J, that there's going to be a Season 3, and they're always going to put more emphasis, at least in my mind, on the narrative rather than the in-ring product. Like, they're more satisfied if they know that they've told a great story than if they've had, like, maybe 6 consecutive 5-star matches. You know what I mean? So I think in terms of the story, I think this was a success tonight. In terms of the matches, some may argue that Ultima Lucha, the first one, was better. I think I may even make that argument. But in terms of the story, I think this is a really strong show. So, yeah, good stuff.
I don't think there's anything that I was, like, legitimately disappointed in on tonight's episode.
Right.
Nothing really let me down. I mean, I'm a little disappointed we didn't get to see who was in the limousine with Lorenzo Lamas, but yeah. I know we'll find out eventually, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about my top 3 moments of the night. Number 3 was the last 30 seconds of the show, which is just Dario Cueto, because they put him in the back of the police van with he's handcuffed. Nobody's really saying anything, and he sits down in the back, and they close the doors, and you see the lights going, and they start to drive away, and I'm literally screaming at the television, just fucking look up and smile, you piece of shit. Like, I just couldn't, I just became one of those lunatic people who can't control themselves. And that's exactly what he did, and that's because Dario Cueto is my favorite version of the Joker character, basically. And it's just so, makes me so goddamn happy. Number 2 for me was Katrina showing up.
Yes.
That was so gratifying. And what's really funny is that my roommate and I were talking at that point. Like, we were watching the thing, and I was explaining the story about, strangely enough, I was actually explaining the story about the backstage promo in which the match was made, and then Ivelisse and Katrina pass each other in the doorway. And then I look back up at the screen, and I was like, why did the lights go out? And then there's Katrina, and I went, holy shit!
Yeah.
And Mary was like, I'm just going to go, because I don't understand what's happening. But number 1 for me, Angelico.
Yes.
So gratifying. It was really, really gratifying to watch Johnny Mundo take a crutch to the face.
I'm sure it was. That's entirely subjective, but that's it's fine. It's totally fine.
I think what was great about that though was that it confirms that Mundo was the one that took Angelico out in the first place. Because if you look back, Mundo replaced Angelico in that trio's title opportunity with Ivelisse and Son of Havoc, and then later on in the season, he attacked Fenix backstage and replaced him in the trio with Evans and PJ. So, Angelico coming back exclusively to beat the shit out of Johnny Mundo confirms Mundo was the one that took him out in the first place. I love that.
Which, when Ashton first told that to me, because I think you made that point known on our live reactions, blew my fucking mind. First of all, that he completed the circle, so well done you. And again, it just further emphasizes the point I made only a few moments earlier. Lucha Underground is always going to prioritize the grand overarching story over any singular matchup. And you can see the results here. This is a brilliant story because now when Angelico and Mundo meet up, it's not just going to be a match for wrestling's sake. It's going to be, well, you took me out when I wanted to get back my Trios championships. Then you won the Trios championships that should have been mine anyway, and now I'm just going to knee your face off. And it's going to be amazing matches between these two. I can't wait. Really
I can't wait for Johnny Mundo to suffer the consequences.
Well, you'd be wrong, but obviously we're all looking forward to something different because clearly Johnny Mundo's going to put Angelico down like the whiny little bitch bag that he is. Oh, I'm rehabbing. Oh, you guys see me tweeting my inspiration? Shut the hell up. Nobody cares.
Listen.
Nobody cares.
First of all, don't talk smack about Angelico and make me come over there. That's number one. Number two, maybe you're right. Maybe Angelico is not going to give Johnny Mundo the ass-kicking he so richly deserved. Because if you watch Face Lock Feministas, you know that in my soul, my darkest Pentagon Dark soul that I have, I truly believe that when Johnny Mundo gets his comeuppance for all of the douchebag shit that he pulls over the course of 2 seasons of Lucha Underground, that ass-kicking is coming from none other than Taya Valkyrie, because that girl is going to take his ass to Slam Town.
Okay.
I have been saying for so long now that she is going to get sick of his shit and turn on him and beat the hell out of him.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening, John. It is happening.
Yeah, well, you two guys were talking. I was on the phone. Now, you said not to talk smack about Angelico. According to the operator I was on the phone with, I just did! Okay, so that happened. All right? And then second of all right, we're just talking about Taya. Now, listen. Taya's amazing. If you didn't notice, she beat Ivelisse tonight like I said she would because Ivelisse is a normie, okay? And she can't measure up to the perfect woman. And being the perfect woman, she realizes...
Can't measure up to the perfect woman, Katrina.
Okay. First of all, that was entirely inaccurate, and I can't even believe that Taya and Katrina just collided in the same sentence. I think my brain just vomited. Second of all, okay, knowing that she's the perfect woman, she's not going to leave a good thing, okay? They're champions. That's what they do. All those losers in the temple.
No, they're not. They just lost the titles tonight.
Well, they're going to gain them back, and it was all Angelico's fault in the first place, okay? And, yeah, it's going to be just fine. There's going to be no betrayal, okay? This isn't some Shakespearean tragedy, okay? Get your head out of the book for once, all right? They're all winners. They're going to stay together, and that's that. And Johnny Mundo for World Champion Season 3. Trend it! And that's all I have to say about that. So, yeah, there we go.
We should just end the podcast right here.
You're
Sean
so
has gone
right.
on his rant and tried to school me, and that's fine, and you're entitled to your wrong opinion. That's okay.
Look at you. You're so good. You just inserted wrong before opinion. What a sick burn. I'm never going to recover. What's my life now? What is my life now? I'll tell you what it is. It's the life of a winner, because Mundo's going to bounce back. You watch. All of you watch. It's going to happen. You've been quiet over there, Ashton. What do you think? You think Angelico's going to get the winning end of that feud?
Ashton knows better than to get in between the two of us.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, so what did you guys think of Matanza Pentagon Dark?
Look at you diffusing the tension. I will say, though, what I want to ask the Lady J, and I'm being serious now, did you agree with the booking decision of Pentagon being so dominant early on, I guess to really add credibility to Pentagon Dark, or what did you think about all that? Because that was kind of a weird moment, seeing Matanza that vulnerable.
This is one of those moments where I'm not entirely sure with which part of my brain I was watching that match. if I was watching it with wrestling fan who just wants to get worked by really great stories and really great wrestling, or the part of my brain that is a smarky bitch. Because I think that's the part that took over. Because while I was watching the beginning of this match, I actually said out loud, oh, he's not going to win. And I think that sometimes it's hard to separate the two, like the regular fan from the asshole fan.
Right.
So with it being that strong and aggressive that I was like, yeah, I think that you're trying to push this one a little too hard for it to be believable as he's going to win.
Right.
And I sort of was thinking about during the commercial that came afterwards, and I was like, what if they had booked it instead that Vampiro just turned on him? And then I was like, no, I don't really like that for Vampiro. So I guess it all worked out in the end, because I don't want a continual story involving Pentagon and Matanza, so they had to get the match out of the way to get to the good part, which is the story involving Vampiro and Pentagon Dark. But at the same time, I was just kind of like, well, now that we see how strong he's being booked in the beginning of this match, I guess we know how the end of the match goes.
Right, yeah.
And the other part of it, too, is that what match came after Pentagon Dark and Matanza?
Ivelisse.
Yeah, and how did that match get booked? Ivelisse was pretty strong in the beginning, and then what happens? She loses. And I feel like that's a very... typical is not really the right word, but that is very common in professional wrestling. And
maybe?
Yeah, sometimes when you do it too many times, it starts to get predictable, and that can take some of the flavor out of it. So I don't really know. It didn't ruin it for me, but I was like, well, okay, now I'm pretty sure he's not going to win. So now what's going to happen? Because this is a huge story, and what do you do with the story if he doesn't win the title? So that's interesting. But also, it made it set a lot of things into motion for me, because it creates the Vampiro Pentagon story part 3, but it also painted this really wild picture in my head that I was like, okay, so Matanza still has the title. And Sexy Star has the Gift of the Gods belt.
Yes.
That's very fucking interesting.
Yeah.
That's one of those situations in which I go, man, I really hope I get to go on Twitter and say, never send a man to do a woman's job. That's what I really want to have happen. I want her to cash on the belt and win, and then I get to say it on Twitter. That's all.
Well, we'll see. But I mean, Ashley, what do you think about all this?
If I'm Sexy Star, I mean, here's the thing. I guess if I didn't have to defend the title as long as I hold it, I would want to hold on to that thing for as long as possible in hopes that somebody else would beat Matanza, just so I wouldn't have to fight him. But that doesn't even have to do with Sexy Star. That's just whoever would have ended up with Gift of the Gods, that's what I would have probably wanted to do if I was them.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Because I think that the problem with what you just said is that if I was Sexy Star, I think that the way that the Sexy Star character is designed, I think that she would totally be willing to get in the ring with Matanza, because I think that I hate to say it like this because it does sound a little smarmy, but there is a difference to the way people's brains work, and maybe she's going to bank on, I'm not thinking like a man, I'm going to think like Sexy Star, and it got me this far, so maybe it can get me the belt. I don't know.
Can I ask you something?
Maybe she gets in there and gets totally fucking destroyed. I don't know. But.
Well, here's where I'm going to interject, because I would like to ask Lady J something. Because, I mean, we have watched Space Like Feministas for a while, which all of you guys should, because even though she censors me, she's wonderful. What I want to know from you, and I think, I don't know how long you've been listening to TWitWoW, but maybe you've heard me with the soundbite of the only thing that's going to beat a god, because Matanza has a god inside of him, is another god. Could you see with the Lucha Underground mythos, maybe Sexy Star, I mean, she has the power of the gods with the Gift of the Gods, but maybe she'll take it one step further, because Cage also did, but that wasn't enough. Do you think maybe she'll let a god, I don't know, control her body or something? Like, what lengths should she be willing to go to beat Matanza, do you think, when we think about the Lucha Underground mythology as a whole?
I don't know that there is a more babyface in, I hate to use that word back-to-back like that, but I don't know that there is a more righteous good person in Lucha Underground than Sexy Star, so I would prefer her not to go to extreme, like pushing her body to extreme, like by getting in the ring with Matanza and having a match that lasts a whole episode and then losing would be totally worthwhile to me. But doing something manipulative, like allowing her body to be controlled by a god, I don't know.
It's just for me, the only reason why I even posit the question to you in the first place, and I totally get what you're saying, but like everybody's brain works differently. Like somebody could look at a scenario and be like, well, that's stupid, because if I do that, I'm going to die, so I'm going to take a left. Fuck you guys, I'm going home. Sexy Star could look at that and be like, oh, I have a chance to be world champion. I'm going for it. That's fine. But I think it doesn't change the idea. The obstacle is Matanza, who's beaten Cage, who won Aztec Warfare, who beat Pentagon Dark tonight, albeit with Dario Cueto interference. I can readily concede that. It's just, man or woman, it's clearly been established that this character is going to take a hell of a lot to beat. And my question to the Sexy Star character is, with your virtue, with your goodness, how much are you willing to sacrifice? Because so far, everybody else that's answered that question, it hasn't been enough. And for Sexy Star, I think she's going to have to give a hell of a lot. And that's why I do think about the Lucha Underground mythology, because, I mean, you have time travelers, you have dragons, you have everything. And I just wonder if Sexy Star is going to have a little something, even if not a god inside of her, to pack a little extra punch to beat Matanza, because that's one hell of a mountain.
Okay, I have said many times on this podcast that I don't like to fantasy book Lucha Underground. But I will say this. Barring any other storyline, right? Just take basically all of Lucha Underground canon out of the picture. And with the knowledge that the woman behind the mask is going to be leaving. We know that because she was unmasked by her husband in real life. Boxing. Yes, through boxing. Because that's what she's going to do, right? She's going to start boxing.
Right.
Knowing that information, what I think, as a fan of Sexy Star, as a female wrestling and Lucha Underground fan, what would be, in my opinion, the top level, coolest thing they could do to put the belt on a woman, get rid of the unstoppable freight train that is Matanza, and then get rid of Sexy Star simultaneously, is a death match in which she kills Matanza, wins the match, and dies anyway.
Wow, that would be pretty crazy. Like, she ultimately wins, but wouldn't even be around to enjoy it. What do you think about that, Ashton?
I mean, I don't really know how that would work. If you kill someone else, how do you die as well?
Well, it could be like maybe she slowly bleeds out, like you've seen in movies, like maybe somebody takes care of a big bad, but they've been bleeding out the whole time, or some kind of serious injury that they've been able to stave off long enough to get it done.
I think I'm just on the other end of the spectrum here, because to me, you look at Cage, and he had the gift of the gods, and then you look at Sexy Star, and now, sure, she's got gift of the gods, but Cage couldn't get the job done. How is she supposed to?
See, okay, can I just interject and just say one thing?
Sure.
I don't mean to be dismissive of an opinion, but I think that one of the really incredible things about Lucha Underground, and really in this season in particular, because the very first Lucha Underground Championship match we had this season was Ivelisse versus Mil Muertes, which is something I never thought we were ever going to see. And even though the match didn't last as long as I wanted it to, I don't think she got, like, manhandled. Like, she showed up for the match, for sure.
Right.
So I think that there is something inherent in us that makes us think that, like, if you have a big opponent, you need another big opponent to smash into them in order to topple them. But sometimes you can outsmart them. And I think that Sexy Star could... I mean, honestly, if you had to pick someone in the temple to outsmart Matanza, it would probably be Katrina. But she's also clouded, I think, by a lot of other things right now. So I would not be surprised if Sexy Star managed to outthink Matanza.
And we'll see. You know, that could be a viable run. I mean, I will say this, because I, too, am a huge fan of the Sexy Star character. I love the backstory where, like, she overcame a lot of abuse, had suicidal contemplation, and not not to get too serious on here because I know we're having a good time, but why I love the characters, I think it's so relevant to a lot of feminist issues in this day and age and a lot of things that women do deal with. Like, I really do think she's an ideal role model. And, you know, that's why I love the character so much. So, yeah, her using her wits, that's totally fine. I mean, look, with Marty and Mariposa, I think what she really relied on was sheer will. Like, I'm not going to be broken by these people. Yep. I am going to endure, I am going to persevere, and my identity belongs to me. So it's kind of like a reaffirmation of her autonomy as a human being, as a woman. Like, nobody's going to break me and make me their pet or whatever, because it was primarily psychological torture. With somebody that's a sheer brute, and that just, you know, he has finesse in a way, I think, mainly because of Cueto, you know, guiding the key and all that stuff, but he really just, it's a lot of power, a lot of raw power. Then, yeah, maybe the brain would topple all that brawn. It's just, and see, that's the thing, this whole discourse that we've been having about it really illuminates the greatness of Lucha Underground because only they know the end game. And I'm really curious how all the pieces are going to assemble into that final picture. Like, how do we go from Sexy Star as Gift of the Gods with Matanza as champion to Sexy Star potentially toppling Matanza and becoming world champion? That's what I'm very intrigued about taking, for sure.
Yep.
And, of course, there are the possibilities of things like, what if Sexy Star loses the belt? What if they never get to actually interact with one another and Matanza loses the belt to someone else and then she has to face a different person for the title?
Yeah,
we don't know. Anything is possible.
What do you think, Ashton? Because, I mean, it could be possible that Pentagon Dark could come back into the fold, win the title, and then we revisit that feud, which is kind of new because, I mean, Sexy Star beat Pentagon Jr. She's never beaten Pentagon Dark. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think if we take a step back and kind of look at what's going on right now, I feel like the entire purpose of Ultima Lucha Dos was to get us talking and ready for Season 3, and I've never felt more ready for Season 3 to get here.
I'm amped the fuck up. What about you, Lady J? Are you ready?
For Season 3? No, I think I need to sleep for 1,000 years before I can get into Season 3, but I'm really excited. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are rumors floating around that it's going to start airing in the fall, which has me super psyched up, and it's going to be nice to not have to wait 5 months again like we did last time.
Oh, that wait was agonizing. And you know what, too? It's going to be great for them because there's going to be no tapering off of the momentum. Like, all the momentum they have now, if it's just that little bit of wait, not much of it is going to wane off for people. And, yeah, I totally think that'll work. I mean, from what I've been hearing, non-spoiler, of course, on Twitter and everything, is that Season 3 kicked ass. Like, it was probably some of the most amazing television we'll ever witness. I don't know what those people saw in the temple, but it won't be long before we find out, hopefully, so I'm totally ready.
My favorite thing, too, is that when we did our, little test meeting with the Last Real Heels, they were there. I think one of them was there for Ultima Lucha Dos, but they were both there for Ultima Lucha Tres. Yeah. And one of the things that they were saying was so awesome was the fact that when you get to go and be there in the temple, which is great, you're still missing pieces of the puzzle because you don't see those behind-the-scenes things that we get to see on the episode. So it's still necessary to go home and actually watch the episode to find out what the whole story is. And I think that's really awesome.
Anything else we want to talk about?
I have something I want to talk about.
Okay, Ashton, yeah, put it on the table.
Jesus, here we go.
All right. The last thing that we saw tonight was Dario Cueto getting drove away in a police van with Matanza's key.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That means either A, he's going to get broken out on episode 1 of Season 3 and we're going to kind of return back to normal, or B, which is the more interesting option, I think, Matanza's in the temple alone with no supervision.
Oh, God. What are we thinking, Lady J? Do you think that's he's going to run amok and violence is going to ensue because it's not organized by Cueto? It's just Matanza doing whatever the hell he wants?
No. I think Matanza is locked in the basement and someone's going to be feeding him, and then when Dario finally gets out, he's going to let him out.
Loyalties and switch, maybe.
Fucking crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if I was Black Lotus, for example,
right,
I would make sure to feed the monster. possibly parts of Dragon Azteca Jr. But I would make sure to if only because my arm was just broken by Pentagon Dark. The only person who has beaten this version of Pentagon is Matanza. I mean, granted, I'm assuming that in the beginning, Pentagon probably Pentagon is the one I imagine running amok, not Matanza. I think Matanza is going to be somebody that we know is there, but don't think about for a little while until we need him. I think that's a good thing about the Matanza character is because he doesn't speak, that you can sort of like kind of forget about him a little bit. And then bring him out, and you're like, oh, fuck, I forgot that the Lucha Underground title was on a god who eats people. Excellent. Yeah. So that's what I would do with it if it was me. But, they haven't hired me yet, so.
Well,
I think that's the most interesting angle going into Season 3, though, is what's going to happen with Cueto and him not being in the temple. What kind of chaos is that going to lead to in the temple?
That is such a hard sentence to say, though. The most interesting angle, because there are about 19 of them.
Yeah.
Like, where the fuck...
I feel like this is the only one that affects the entire temple, though.
We also don't know... All we saw was them put him in the back of a police van. What did he do? Did they find Cisco's body? Or is he up Cisco in one of those ceiling tiles with God knows what else? Did they feed him to Matanza and there's nothing left?
That would have been interesting.
Bringing him into question him?
Matanza was my high spot last week for being able to get fed for the next week because of Cisco.
Yeah.
Man,
so I feel like we don't really know what's going on with Dario Cueto.
Right.
We don't really know what's going on with Mil Muertes and Katrina. We don't really know, because now she's getting in the ring, so does that mean she's disconnected from him, or he's not her priority anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, now we have something going on with Johnny Mundo and Angelico. Yeah. We have something potentially going on with Dr. Wow, I totally just blanked out.
Dr. Wagner Jr.
Dr. Wagner Jr. and Son of Havoc.
Yeah.
And Famous B. We have Pentagon Dark versus Matt Striker's face and Vampiro.
Matt Striker getting super kicked was hilarious.
Wait, can I edit my list? Number 1, best moment of the night was Matt Striker getting kicked in the
Yes.
That's the most on-brand thing I could say. I was like, finally, thank you. So, excellent.
So, with all that on the table, I gotta ask, and I'll answer, I guess, this question myself to start, is what thread are we most looking forward to follow as individuals, the three of us, for Season 3? I'll be honest, even as a Mundo fan, I've got to say the thread I'm most excited to follow is Son of Havoc's redemption. I think he's got a great story coming, hopefully to the main event of Ultima Lucha Tres. So, and I hate to do it to my boy Mundo because I'm 150% behind anything he's doing, but Son of Havoc I think is going to be one hell of a journey to watch. So what about you, Lady J? What thread are you most looking to follow in Season 3, given everything on the table?
Ivelisse versus Katrina.
Oh, you took it. I was going to say that too.
There isn't, as far as I'm concerned, there isn't anything else, because I just want, like, if I could have my way, barring everything else I just said about how I would book Season 3 would be them having matches like every third episode.
Yeah, there you go. Ashton, I know you said Lady J took yours. I mean, I'm guessing you'll stand behind it, but do you have like a runner-up, like, that you're looking forward to really following?
Well, I already mentioned the chaos that's going to ensue in the temple without Cueto around, but the other one that I want to talk about, John, you mentioned Son of Havoc's redemption story. How about Prince Puma's redemption story?
That's right.
Why did we not even bring that match up once? We haven't even talked about that at all.
Yeah, because it was the main event, so I figured we'd save it for last.
Okay,
right.
Wait. I'm gonna mention something. We haven't really given shout-outs to anybody, but one of the loyal followers of Facelock Feministas, who is known on Twitter as Sir Absurd, was tweeting about how much he did not like the storyline involved in the match itself between Rey and Puma, and that was because Puma was behaving in a way that seemed both uncharacteristic and not how I was expecting him to behave based on everything leading up to the match. He was like overly respectful and it kept fucking him up.
Yeah.
And And Sir Absurd was just saying, like, I just think it was bullshit. I can't even believe that he fucked up so much stuff by just, like, sort of kowtowing to Rey.
Yeah,
And
I mean, he still kind of showed some arrogance, though, when he went for the 619, or as he called it, the 323.
Yeah, but then he changes. You know what? I wanted this to be something more than an exhibition, and it kind of felt like an exhibition to me, and then there was this respectful thing at the end, which is fine, but knowing all of the really meaty storytelling that Lucha Underground has been doing with everything else that we've seen in all of Ultima Lucha Dos up to this point, having that be the last note, like, if there was no segment, like backstage segment with Cueto at the end, I think I would have been like, that's how they're fucking ending this season? Like, no, you stay in the ring and get your applause. I'm going to go have a beer. Like that, I was just kind of like, that's great and all, but if I wanted to watch, like, just a really good wrestling match, I would Google Ricochet and watch them somewhere else. Like, I want a good story. That's why I watched Lucha Underground. So the wrestling was good, but the story was like, eh.
If I may interject, I think I knew it was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen. Damn it! But no, seriously. Here's my thing when it comes down to the main event. I didn't like Puma's hesitation because, to draw a parallel very quickly, this wasn't because WWE, we all think about, at least I thought about, Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. It wasn't even close, though, because Ric Flair, like, he was going to this whole storyline like he was facing Randy Orton, Umaga, MVP, Mr. Kennedy, all the while his career was on the line. And Shawn Michaels knew, like, victory was in sight. And he knew ending the career of a legitimate legend was on his shoulders. This wasn't about Rey's career or anything. This was about, am I better than Rey? How I would have told the story, because Puma even initiated the challenge, like, I need to know if I am the next Rey Mysterio or that I'm better. Like, if he would have had Rey maybe kick out of the 630 at one point, and then every movement Puma makes, you can kind of feel that doubt, that hesitation, because, oh, he kicked out of my best shot, what's left? Am I really the next Rey Mysterio? Am I really as good? I don't know, maybe he thinks about Conan, and then all this doubt starts to come to the circus. I feel like that would have been better than just him kind of shrugging, almost feeling remorseful about putting the final nail in the coffin of Rey Mysterio, which wouldn't have even been the final nail anyway. So it was kind of jarring for me, too. I definitely felt a disconnect.
Yeah, this might sound kind of strange, but I felt like Puma versus Azteca Jr. almost told a better story than Puma versus Rey.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I had the same thought.
Yeah.
So, I try to stay away from spoilers, and I don't necessarily think this is a spoiler, but I believe it's common knowledge on the length of which Ricochet will be remaining in Lucha Underground, that it is finite. And therefore, I think in a moment I was like, he's going to be back in Season 3, right? Because if that's how he leaves, I'm going to be really, really pissed.
Yeah, he's back in he's in Season 3. Season 3 is just his last season.
Right.
Yeah, that was more of like a, not to draw another parallel to WWE, but that was more of like a, I'm going up to the main roster now, goodbye, NXT.
Yeah.
Like, I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
It was a good match, but in terms of storytelling, pretty much everything else that came before it was better.
Yeah. It felt like, from a storytelling perspective, like, it didn't really feel that much different than, say, Fenix versus Pentagon at the very beginning of Season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Before anything even got developed. Like, I feel like the 619 that Puma did, the 323, could have really been built to something where he got over arrogant and it cost him, but really what cost him was an unwillingness to pull the trigger and put an end to Mysterio.
And when you think about it, like you said, there was great storytelling in his match against Dragon Azteca Jr., but also they had taken the character in a direction at the end of their reign as Trios champions. And then they sort of, like, pivoted from that. Not that they turned completely on it, that they were like, well, we're thinking about turning him heel, and then changed their mind. But they were sort of like, he's going to do a bad thing, and then we're going to go over here with the story. And so then we just ended up with 3 not really heels in the match, like, you know what I mean? And I don't know.
I think the end of their trios run, I almost felt like that was not so much like teasing a heel turn as much as it was like angsty teen Puma. Like he was just pissed off at the way that they'd been getting screwed, and he lashed out. And then even after that, he wasn't heelish. He was sort of fed up with everything that had been going on, and he wanted to make a statement and have something definitive.
But then what the through line should have been there, and I think you're inferring it, which is fine. And when you say it like that, it's easy for me to infer it as well. But it would have made more sense if after that Puma had come out and been like, you know what, I don't need to be Trios champion with the two of you. I've already been Lucha Underground champion, which neither one of you have done. So Rey Mysterio, I want you to come out here and I'm going to prove that I'm better than you are. That would have made him more interesting.
I feel like that would have made him more heelish, though. Heels
are always more interesting to me.
hey, that's something we can actually agree on. But you actually brought up an interesting point, Lady J. And just a quick side note, I don't know how we can connect it to the bigger overall theme of what we've been discussing, but I just realized I don't think we ever saw Mil Muertes Puma 2 this entire season. Like, Puma never really formally got his rematch, did he? No. That's crazy to think about.
We got the big triple threat, Mil, Puma,
Pentagon.
That's
right. We did get a triple threat, but yeah, we never got like Puma's formal one-on-one rematch because that was when Katrina was running the temple. So yeah, Puma's season had a very interesting trajectory because I know on Lucha Rewatch or Luchador Spotlight, Ash, and you and I, we were talking about, you know, Puma going on a vision quest, and we made a big deal about his rematch. And just like, yeah, it all ended up with this match with Mysterio, which I don't want to call underwhelming. I mean, I enjoyed it, but narratively, I think, like you guys have been saying, it definitely lacked a certain punch to me that I think I was waiting for. And I like Conky Puma, you know?
It's the second year in a row that Puma needs to redeem himself.
I know, 0-2 at Ultima Lucha, too. He's like the poster boy of Lucha Underground, yet he's 0-2 at their biggest event. Yeah. Oh, man, that's crazy to think about.
I will say, if it makes Prince Puma and Rey Mysterio feel better, that they were not the least interesting part of Ultima Lucha Dos for me. The least interesting part was anything involving Cobra Moon and Daga.
Well, that's another thing. There was no closure on that whole thing at all.
Part of the reason why I brought it up is so that one of you could say that, and I could point to all the viewers out there and say, see, I'm not the only one. And, you know, it's really funny because I feel like... So when Sarah and I were doing this podcast together, this is obviously episode number 26 and a half, 27, whatever you want to call it. We did almost the whole season of Lucha Underground together, and It's been a lot of fun. And I will definitely be back for season 3, and I'll figure out something to do in between now and then. But when this stuff started happening with Cobra Moon and Daga, I cut this, like, crazy fucking promo on the podcast, and people got mad. They were like, I thought you were a Lucha Underground fan. And I was like, being a fan doesn't mean just blindly going on with things you don't like. Right. That's not what that means. When I cut promos on Matt Stryker, people don't get mad at me, but people got mad because I didn't just say, like, you know, I suddenly was picturing, like, the meme of the dog drinking coffee in hell.
Everything is fine.
It's fine. This is fine. And I was like, no, it's not. I mean, it's not epically bad, and the flames of hell are not, like, consuming me, but I was like, really? This is what they're doing with this character who the last time we saw her was having this crazy, awesome submission-based match against Ivelisse, and now she's licking Daga's abs? I mean, I get it. Trust me, I understand. But and then in the end, they don't pay it off. And I sort of felt like vindicated by that I was like, see, this story was so stupid that they didn't even know what to do with it. So they
That's the thing, though. Like, I was waiting because last season, the end of Ultima Lucha had basically the final 5 minutes were just kind of putting lids on stories that were kind of finished and putting them behind us, and then building other stories, like, you know, kind of building to Cuerno Phoenix, building, you know, the Trios champions getting ready to go on their redemption story, all that stuff. And now with this, the closing minutes, we had literally 2 stories. It was Pentagon Dark becoming the master and Cueto getting arrested. And that's it. We didn't get anything else on anything else.
Which leads me to ask, like, because I agree with you guys completely. As somebody who's a big fan of the Cobra Moon character. Like, I love the cinematics that introduced her. I loved her vibe, everything. I thought she had a cool aesthetic with the costume and everything. And I was really hoping, like, she would do something significant here in the finale. You've got to wonder if a standard Lucha Underground season, so by standard, like, that's what they use, whatever. If it was always 39 episodes and 90 minutes, because I know, Ashton, you've been talking about it, becoming a bit longer, I wonder if, like, these loose ends wouldn't exist, because I wonder how much of it really was creative constraints. Like, we only have 26 episodes. This is our time slot, and we've got to do what we can. But in which case, like, I don't know, you got to have better finishes, a better hook, for Season 3, for even what I guess they would consider the lesser stories, because you didn't even follow up on this at all. It's a real conundrum to me, because I do think in a way they were boxed in, but in another way, like, why even initiate if you're not going to, really even give kind of a hook or whatever?
My argument against that, and shocking, I'm going to argue with you now.
Of course.
I think is that unlike something like WWE, which is constrained by the product being live and having to be reactionary, not necessarily to the audience, but to what's happening with their athletes. So, like, right. Seth Rollins gets injured, you have to vacate the title, and now you have to figure out how to make a new champion, right?
Right.
With Lucha Underground, they're shooting on a much smaller period of, like, their time frame for when they're shooting the in-ring action is much smaller, and if someone gets injured, there is still wiggle room to go back and figure out how to change the story.
Right.
So, for example, I have no idea if whether the Mundo thing was a reaction to Angelico getting injured and then them creating this thing of putting him into the trios picture.
Right, like,
you know what I mean?
Revisionist history almost. Like,
exactly.
Something happens, you improvise, and then you kind of rewrite history to make it seem like the improvisation was always intended.
Exactly. So they have that ability, in which case I wonder if maybe, like, something was going on, like Cobra Moon was, like, injured but not injured enough to keep her out of the ring, and she was going to have surgery, and so they had to keep her out of the ring, but they wanted to keep her relevant, so they gave her this story. But if they did, right, they should have paid the story off in some way that, like, he, like, flips out and, like, throws things at her or something like that and creates a feud between the two of them for Season 3. There was nothing about what happened that made me think that the two of them would interact with each other at all in Season 3 in any way.
Yeah, it's so weird because, like, the exact same thing has been happening pretty much for the last, it feels like 2 months, where just her watching his matches, and we didn't get any kind of advancement or progression on just her watching his matches, even at Ultima Lucha 2, which you would expect something to happen.
No, what were you going to say, Lady J? I'm sorry, you go first.
I was just going to say that there are other storylines that happened over the previous 2 episodes that led me to believe that feuds between characters that have existed already in Season 2 are going to continue in Season 3. For example, Killshot and Marty the Moth are clearly not done with each other. But I don't think to myself, like, man, they really left us hanging with that one. Like, no, that we got what we needed out of that story because that story intersected with other things, including Sexy Star becoming the first female Gifts of the Gods champion. So I didn't think to myself, like, they never paid that off. Like, they will. I'm not worried about that continuing. It's just that, like, she showed up, he lost, and then she disappeared. They didn't interact with each other at all, and now I'm kind of like, was that even a story? Did I get mad over a story that wasn't really a story? I don't even know what that was.
Yeah, and I think to kind of add on to your point, saying, they can do the revisionist history, and there are, like, things in their bag of tricks that they could do. I remember telling you, Ashton, like, one thing that I would have loved for them to do, just with their creative capabilities, is if, like, you did a kind of, like, shadow play kind of thing, where you see Drago maybe shoving somebody and just being like, no, I don't want to deal with you, and then you see the shadow become, like, a cobra, and then just kind of wrap around him and then just carry him away or something. I felt like that would have been cool, because you wouldn't have had to even physically see Cobra Moon for that to happen. It would have just been like, oh, what the fuck was that? But yeah, like, no follow-up. It is disappointing, because I like Cobra Moon a lot. And Drago was really growing on me as the season was coming to a close. Yeah. And this is another reason that, like, if I'm being honest, and maybe this is just me being a petulant child, because the end of the first Ultima Lucha was just so good, I feel like as much as I love Pentagon Dark and I loved everything he did, I did think the beatdown got a little excessive. I mean, him definitely licking the blood, I felt like got a little excessive. And the Cueto arrest. I'm sorry, Ash, were you trying to say something?
Nope.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And the Cueto arrest was epic. Like, I feel like that was needed. I wouldn't have changed that at all. But it would have been nice if, like, we kind of revisited, maybe Son of Havoc's training, or he's getting on his bike to kind of regroup because he got screwed out of Ultima Lucha trades. Maybe Worldwide Underground's like, okay, how are we going to handle Angelico because he's a problem? I would have liked that.
and then while they're all trying to figure out how to deal with Angelico, Taya's just in the corner sipping from a glass like, oh, you guys handle your problem. I'm good. I won tonight.
It's like that Kermit meme, like, oh, you guys are all bitching you lost the titles, but I won my match, but ain't none of my business. Sips tea.
Yeah.
And, like, it would have been nice, and obviously very different because you have some new performers and stuff, but, like, I was kind of hoping what we got at the end of the first Ultima Lucha would kind of be a template for how every season would end.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Like the end of season 1, not only did we have stuff like that following up on what happened at Ultima Lucha, we also had a couple of little things that kind of set things up for season 2. The biggest one in my memory is Cuerno going after Fenix.
Right.
Like, we could have had something where maybe Nightclaw had some kind of confrontation with someone else to set something up for season 3.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I mean, Nightclaw is definitely going to be somebody I can't wait to see more of in season 3.
Right.
Yeah.
But right now, he does not have a direction.
Right, because I mean,
unless he is gonna, like, I don't know, like, who eliminated him in Gift of the Gods?
See, I was just gonna tell you, like, that that in itself poses a problem because Killshot eliminated Nightclaw, but he's already in conflict with Marty the Moth.
Yeah, so Killshot and Marty the Moth are doing their thing, but what does Nightclaw have? Like, I feel like
he eliminated Sinistro de la Muerte, who also doesn't have a story right now, so maybe they will feud with each other.
Exactly, because and another thing with him is Katrina hasn't been showing up with him. So did she just kind of, like, cut him off at the pass and be like, no, you're not my property anymore. Go do your own thing. I don't care about you anymore. Like,
okay.
That's.
I will say this one thing in their defense, and when I say they, I mean the people who write Lucha Underground, which is that when you do something the first time and people love it as intensely as people love the first season of Lucha Underground in its entirety, it's very, very hard to sustain that moving forward because you're going to have to change things.
Right.
It's not plausible to do 39 episodes. You know what I mean? Like, it's not plausible in the same way that you can't expect a band to create their first album over and over and over again.
Right.
Each season is going to have to be.
You can't just say, okay, season 1 was amazing, so let's use that as a template and do the exact same thing with different names.
Right. Exactly. Because then people get bored, and then you'll only have 2 seasons. So I think that they definitely, all in all, they completely delivered on season 2.
Yes.
But I think that we are left with some questions that aren't necessarily like, what the fuck are they going to do in season 3? It's more of like, how are they going to make me interested in this in season 3? And at the same time, they have these incredible things like the Pentagon Dark storyline and what's going on with Dario Cueto that make me go like, oh my god, I'm totally salivating for season 3. So I feel like the feelings I have going into season 3 are way more mixed than they were going into season 2.
Yeah.
But I haven't given up on them yet, and I'm not going to. I will say, though, that after all that nonsense with Cobra Moon and me being angry about it, I actually heard from Chris Roach, who said, I think we deserve a little more credit than that. We've never let you down before. And I would like to say to him now.
Well, and see, that's where I've got to say in their defense. Like, I do think, obviously, we should have been left with a little something. But I'm telling you, these are the same people that, again, for all 3 parts of Ultima Lucha Dos, not one mention of the Lord. I think whatever Season 3 has in store, they're just going to sit back and watch those fireworks go off because I think we're in store for something really special.
I think the one thing that's beneficial to them as well is that they were watching the reactions to Season 2 while they were working on Season 3. So you would have to assume Season 3 is actually going to be the best of both worlds.
Yes.
I legitimately think Season 3 is going to be the best season that we've gotten so far.
I'm so stoked.
What are your hopes for Lucha Underground? Are you hoping that it becomes a continuous... Because I know we've heard, like, Krista Joseph did the interview on Jim Ross's podcast, and JR asked if they were going to tour, and he said it's something that they're considering, along with like making the show more readily available in foreign countries and stuff like that. But what do you guys think is a better idea for Lucha Underground? Do you think it's better for them to become promotion-based where they can take the characters on the road, or do you think it's better to stay focused on the show, knowing that it might not be long-term sustainable that way?
Okay, can I go first, Ashton, or?
Yes, I was just going to say, John, I want you to go first on this. So that's
okay,
perfect.
I'm going to go with your latter option, Lady J. I don't think they should tour. I think they should focus on the show because, and here's my thing, and that might be a controversial opinion. I don't know how your fans are going to react to me saying that. You know, we're thankful we're getting a season 3, but none of us have been saying because it's not out there, you know, season 4 or anything like that. I think you take everything by a case-by-case basis. And my thing is, too, like, what really sets Lucha Underground apart to me is how they tell stories. They are amazing storytellers. To me, and it's funny because they are a promotion. That's true. It's not incorrect to say that. I've just always looked at them, though, purely through the lens of television. They are a television show, like Breaking Bad, like all those other shows. That's how I look at Lucha Underground. Because normally I would make this distinction. Oh, Raw's a wrestling show. But Lucha Underground, yeah, I do call it TV show, like I would those shows that I just mentioned. I think they should focus on the show. Just keep doing their thing. And maybe like, say, for example, if we would be good enough to get to a season 6 or 7, then maybe you could open up the doors a little bit. Because I think when you get to that point, I think you've got your foot pretty deep in the door, and you're like, okay, I think we've got some security here to work with, and then you could think about stuff like that. But still, even though it's already been 3 seasons coming up now, I personally wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't want to tour. I would want to keep focusing on my bread and butter. That's telling great stories. That's being where everybody knows where we are, having that intimate setting, in Boyle Heights. So, yeah, that's my thing. What about you, Ashton?
Yeah, I think that, and kind of playing off what you even said, I think Lucha Underground isn't necessarily aiming to be a touring wrestling product. I think Lucha Underground is more aiming to be sort of a media monster. Like, we already have comic books. I want more of those. I want a Lucha Underground movie. I want, we have the gritty, dark, adult-oriented wrestling TV show. I want a Lucha Underground cartoon that's on, like, Saturday mornings for kids to watch. I want them to branch out and just make as much as they can and get their hand into as many outlets as they can.
Yeah, I'd have to say that's where I'm at. But, I mean, Lady J, you originally posed the question, so how do you answer your own question? Where are you at?
Well, someone who lives on the East Coast, I would like them to tour and come here so that I don't have to get on an airplane. But
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I also wanted to add in. I think it would be really smart for them to do like 1 per quarter big show, like what they did with Austin Warfare somewhere else in the U.S.
That's a good compromise, I think. But Lady J, continue. You said you wanted them to tour because you're on the East Coast and you don't want to get on a plane to go to California.
But that is entirely a selfish thing and not what I think is actually best for the product. I was going to say best for business and decided I didn't want to do that.
Oh,
but I think that there is a lot of wrestling talent out there in the world, and we all know this, and anybody who thinks that the wrestling talent that exists in the world is finite doesn't Google things, clearly. But because, like, there's so much wrestling on right now. Like, today there was just so much wrestling on in so many different countries and so many different varieties that, to think that it's a very small thing is just ludicrous. But I think it is possible that the people who want to be a part of Lucha Underground will change the same way that they do with any promotion, not because they're not getting paid enough or because they don't like the travel time or whatever, but just because they want to go and do something else.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Ricochet is a perfect example of that.
And I don't hold it against him by any stretch of the imagination, because when you work in a promotion, especially one with a roster as small as Lucha Underground, you're going to have to wrestle the same guys a couple of times. And when that happens, eventually you want to wrestle other people, and the only way to do that is to leave. And I don't hold it against you by any stretch of the imagination. That being said,
isn't that what happened with Kurt Angle and why he left WWE?
Well, I think that was part of it. Kurt Angle was a huge mess, but I mean, I definitely agree with you guys. Look, I mean, look at Cody Rhodes recently in the WWE. He hated being Stardust. He wanted something new because he thought about his dad, and now he's going elsewhere. And now Cody Rhodes is doing everything. Like a match with Kurt Angle,
right.
I mean, that's
a different scenario though, because he was being creatively stifled, which I don't think happens in Lucha Underground at all.
Well, and that's certainly true, but I think still though it comes back to the same problem. Is pretty soon you're gonna feel like it's almost Groundhog Day at work. Like you are doing the same thing. You want something different, and yeah, I don't hold it against Puma at all.
And I think that let's not maybe make Lucha Underground seem quite like the heavenly place for wrestling that we maybe perceive it to be, because I think it's entirely possible that there are people who might go in there and have a meeting about coming to work in Lucha Underground, and when they pitch them a story for a character, the wrestler's going to go, are you an idiot? There's no way I'm doing that. And it's just because it's a difference of what they think that their personage, how they would fit into the Lucha Underground universe, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, or the way that they want to take an existing character. And that's fine too, but getting back to the original question of where they should take the promotion as a promotion, if you're going to keep changing over the people, I guess I would be concerned about how you predict your future, knowing that your cast is not long-term potential.
It's a revolving door.
And I think it's even more so than actors, because I think the other side of it too is that you like to imagine that your actors are working in a safe environment on a movie set or an episodic television show. And even though I like to think that they're taking good care of the wrestlers at Lucha Underground, people are going to get hurt. And then you're down another person, and then you're down another person, and then somebody decides they want to leave, and now what do you do? So I think that it's not even so much that I'm worried about them running out of stories, because I'm quite certain they will never run out of stories. I'm more concerned about them knowing to call it quits when they have run out of people who want to do Lucha Underground the way that it should be done.
Right.
In terms of
it's one of those
talent.
things where, like, if you're Breaking Bad, you've got Bryan Cranston locked down for, I think it was 8 seasons. But if you're Lucha Underground, it really felt like in season 1 their main character was Prince Puma, and he's already going to be gone after 3.
And now I would say that the main character is Pentagon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too is that because of the nature of how many of the contracts are for Lucha Underground, and this is something that I don't really have as much experience with that particular aspect of the wrestling business, is that like when I went to AAW in Chicago last month, and when they announced that this coming Saturday rather, he's going to be there fighting, Sami Callihan, people went fucking berserk. And it's like, he's a heel. Like, the way that he was on the show tonight, that's a heel character. There's no arguing about that. That's a fucking heel. And he's going to be a babyface on Saturday. A big-time babyface. He's just super over as a wrestler. And Ricochet is super over as a wrestler as well, but I think at this point, like, the hot thing is Pentagon. And I'm almost curious, not that those guys aren't talented in their own regards and are doing incredible things that people are watching on YouTube a zillion times, but it's almost like the chicken or the egg kind of thing. Like, did those guys get over and so they became the main character on Lucha Underground, or did Lucha Underground help them become as over as they are?
And I think it's a little bit of both, because, I mean, Lucha Underground took Pentagon, who AAA did not give a single shit about. They thought he sucked. And Lucha Underground pushed him and made him look awesome. And then he started getting calls, and he got a spot in Bola last year, and now he's getting bookings. And now Lucha Underground, not only reacting to their own build, but also reacting to how popular he's gotten, they're pushing him even further. So it's kind of just building upon itself in layers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really is crazy to think about. And Pentagon really is a perfect example. And I love the Believers, too, I gotta say, because you were like, he's a heel and people love him. They were cheering that beatdown of Vampiro tonight. They loved that he was beating the shit out of him. And I've said this before, like, with WWE and certain characters there, and it certainly applies to Lucha Underground. that's why I love wrestling today, because we're not in the 80s anymore. Like, if this was the 80s, I feel like Pentagon would be the ultimate villain, and then Hulk Hogan would probably come out, rip his shirt off and do his usual shtick, but I digress. But we live in an age today where somebody can do something as despicable and to a degree emotionally resonant as, oh, I'm spitting on my mentor and I'm literally licking his blood and, just drinking his blood, and they revel in it. And they want more of it, and it's perverse and it's crazy, but I love it though, and it just shows.
And you know who else kind of fits that mold?
Who's that?
Because last season they pushed Pentagon. He ended up getting booked for Bola, got a bunch of indie bookings. He got really popular, and now they're pushing him even harder. This season it's Jeff Cobb, Matanza. He got booked for Bola. He was in PWG this year. He was on the Prince show. He's going to be everywhere this summer. And he's probably going to get pushed even harder next season.
Yeah, I mean, just crazy to think about. Let's see. Anything else on anybody's mind?
Lady J?
It's so late here. I drove from New York to Philadelphia 2 days ago and Philadelphia to Virginia today. So I don't even think I could spell my own name right now, and it's only one letter. So
fair enough. Yeah, I think I'm tapped out because I think we covered everything pillar to post. I mean, Ashton, what about you?
No, we pretty much covered everything. We very in depth, I think, covered everything even. And at the end of the day, we're going to be doing Lucha Rewatch moving forward. And man, season 3 can't get here soon enough.
Absolutely.
So here's what I'm having an idea as we're sitting here talking about this, because we really did talk about pretty much everything from this episode. What do you guys think about doing a Lucha Underground roundtable with the heels where we just talk about season 2 in general?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'd be cool with that, definitely.
I feel like taking a moment to sort of check out from Ultima Lucha Dos and like just going back over my notes and looking through the whole season might be useful too going into season 3. So
yeah.
So that's it. This is the call. I'm calling out the last real heels. You did not show up for this podcast just because Matt Stryker said you were cool. Matt Stryker's a douche. He doesn't know it's cool. Pentagon Jr. kicked him in the face just to prove how uncool he is. And
so good.
But wait, let me just and just to further, he took a super kick to the face and was done for the rest of the episode, as opposed to Vampiro, who managed to stay conscious even though he was having barbed wire rubbed against his face and getting kicked in the back of the head.
How many times did he get kicked in the head and still keep sitting up?
He thinks he's the Undertaker.
Yeah, apparently.
That title belongs to Mill. Mill is Lucha Taker. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, that's true. You're absolutely right.
That tombstone to finish off Cuerno, though, oh my god.
That was so good. Which is, I really shouldn't even be saying that because King Cuerno was my king, but now I guess I need a new king.
Honestly, in hindsight, that might have been the best match of Ultima Lucha Dos. The death match?
Yeah, that was
I
really
think
good.
it's between that and Matt Cage.
Yeah, Matt Cage was so good.
Matt Cage is different, though. I feel like that everything that happened on the first episode of Ultima Lucha Dos is sort of in a category of its own.
Yeah, it's in a
It was
vacuum
like
almost.
so gimmicky, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but like
it was fun.
Yeah, it was. It was really fun. But I think, the deathmatch was really good. I don't even know. I don't know. I really, really liked Taya Ivelisse. That was really good too.
Yes,
so I don't know if I could pick a favorite match at this moment. And if somebody asked me to pick a favorite match of the whole season, I would go with the No Mas match. But I guess I would have to go back and watch the whole thing.
I'm with you. No Mas to this day is my match of the year.
And you know what's really funny? Because when Tejano, Son of Havoc, from part 1 of Ultima Lucha Dos, they did the same spot with the chair between the legs.
Yeah.
And some friends of mine were sending me DMs about it, and they were like, you know what? It actually was more terrifying when Mariposa did it to Sexy Star. I really thought she was going to crack her right in half. And I was like, maybe it's because we're women and we just identify more with Sexy Star, but yeah, I think the No Mas match is still my favorite. That or the Phoenix King Cuerno Was it Falls Count Anywhere? What the hell was that?
Last
Luchador Standing.
Yeah, Last Luchador Standing, that's what that was, yeah.
That match was kind of bonkers, too.
I mean, yeah, purely subjectively, my favorite match of the season had to be Johnny Mundo's Trios Championship win, because that was my favorite live reactions ever that TWitWoW ever did. But objectively, yeah, No Moss was really freaking good. That was. You know what, though? No, you know what? I gotta be honest. I think I actually enjoyed Matanza Cage more than that. I really love the back and forth those two had. I think Matanza, Cage is my favorite match of season 2. That was so freaking good.
I might be willing to concede the fact that I think the match as a standalone might be better than the No Moss match, but because there were so many other components, there was so much backstory.
Right.
Yeah, the emotional investment in No Moss make it just.
I was crying. I mean, I cry during WWE usually out of frustration, but in Lucha Underground, I don't know that I've ever actually cried during a show before, and I couldn't even we went on late for Face Like Feministas that night because I was legitimately a wreck because I felt like that was the most emotionally cathartic a wrestling match has ever been for me.
Yeah.
That's
just
amazing.
Watching it, I was like, that was like, I felt like I had to cry or maybe scream or punch someone, and I went with crying because it was the least likely to get me arrested.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess you picked the healthiest choice out of those.
It's so cool, though, that match had such an effect on you, and the storytelling really was on point. I mean, that I will readily concede, without question. I just think with the Cage Matanza match, and we've seen Cage do crazy things before with a man that, looks like he does. Mm-hmm. I just feel like that was Cage at his absolute best. And really, Matanza, Jeff Cobb on the mask at his absolute best. I really enjoyed it. But from storytelling, No Moss was great.
I think the only other match that I would put in my sort of top 5 match of the year consideration from this season is Aztec Warfare 2.
Yeah, that was good.
Are we in agreement here that Aztec Warfare 2 was better than the first one?
Yes.
Because I feel very strongly that the second one was way better.
Oh my god, Matanza's debut kicked ass.
Yeah, that was so good. Okay, we're talking too much about stuff that I want to talk about with the heels, so stay tuned for that. So, since you're on my show this time around, why don't you guys tell the people where they can tweet at you if they want to tell you how wrong you are, so that I don't.
Should I do this? Because I haven't done it in so long.
Oh my god, yes, John, you have an opportunity to do the outro again.
I have a task! Okay.
His life has meaning, finally.
Just for kind of a background story on this. For the longest time, we just kept on adding more and more social media, and it just kept on adding to John's outro he had to do until finally, when we had our big 1,000 subscriber special a couple weeks ago, I made new backgrounds for all of our shows, and I added all of John's outro information to the background, so he didn't have to do that anymore.
I know, finally, purpose has been breathed back into my life. Alright, guys, so you can check out the TWitWoW Facebook page. Obviously, on YouTube, if you just typed in TWitWoW, I'm sure the channel will be the first thing that comes up.
Wait,
it's literally youtube.com/TWitWoW video.
Right.
You have to tell them the most important piece of information, though.
Right, the Twitter. I'll give
No. Tell them what TWitWoW stands for, because I don't ever remember.
This week in the world of wrestling. Yes, that's what TWitWoW stands for.
It's too fucking long. Way too fucking long.
Of course it is. But, so both of our Twitter handles, and I know specifically mine, so you can all tell me how much I suck and how wrong I am. And she's got that knowing smile on her face. See, knows. At John_TWitWoW. That's JOHN, by the way, because JON is for Marks. There's JOHN_TWitWoW. Ashton is at apond404, letter A, pond, the body of water, POND 404. And then I'm so tempted to do our outro, but this is your show, so I don't think I'm forgetting anything, so back to you now.
Reddit.
Oh, Reddit, that's right. We're on Reddit. TWitWoW Reddit, TWitWoW subreddit, really cool. You can find all of our TWitWoW content there, and you can talk about all things pro wrestling on there. And now I don't think I'm forgetting anything else. So
yeah, I think you finally got it all covered.
All right, so back to Lady J there.
You can follow me on Twitter at TheLadyJSays. You can follow the Facelock Femmes at Facelock, Femmes, Femmes. You can follow us on YouTube. You might be experiencing this right now there. I'm really sorry for the point where I froze the thing on me while I took a phone call and the guys talked. That was weird, but, you know, shit happens. Hit the subscribe button, which is down here. And if you are listening on iTunes, you can't see shit, so, you know, get over it. Subscribe, rate, and review. I really appreciate when people rate and review. We have a couple of reviews now, and that's really awesome. Am I forgetting anything? You can follow me on my WordPress blog, ladyjsays.wordpress.com. Don't forget to check out on, what's today, Wednesday? On Friday, part 4 of my Roman Reigns retrospective will be up on FightBooth.com because I do nothing all day aside from watching Lucha Underground on Wednesdays and watching Roman Reigns matches during the day because my life is meaningless and has no purpose without you guys anyway. Stay tuned for more Facelock Femme stuff, TWitWoW stuff, hopefully a legit Lucha Underground roundtable featuring the last real heels who are too cool for this. And if you don't like all of that, all I have to say is fuck off.